Hello, and here we go with slope, our second lesson of Unit 2. And you're going to find that slope and rate of change are actually very, very similar. What we just did was rate of change, and now we're going to do slope. And what is the difference? Well, it's actually easier. Slope is actually rate of change without worrying about a label. It's just a number. I want to write that down. It is just a number. And the slope, just like with rate of change, you find it by looking at the change in y over the change in x. And I think I said this in the last lesson. That's rise over run is a common phrase that you've probably heard. Not run, run. Okay. So just like with the last lesson, we're going to look at finding slope from a variety of given information. First one is between 2 points. So a related question that I want to kind of get you thinking. If the temperature outside was 45 degrees, let's say at the start of the day, and it is now 58 degrees, what was the change in temperature? Well, you would probably all figure that out pretty quickly and say that it's 13 degrees. How'd you get that? You subtract it, right? That's what change in means. So we're going to use that same idea and look at a more abstract idea with algebra. If I have 2 points, x1, y1, that's 1 point, and x2, y2, it's a second point, what is the change in each coordinate? When you answer this question, you are finding slope. And so we're going to develop the formula from that idea. So change in means subtract. So remember, with slope, we're looking at the change in y. So we're going to go y2, where you end up, subtract where you started, y1, over x2 is where you ended up, subtract where you started. Now, there is another way of writing this formula. And, oh, by the way, that equals m. M is slope. You will get used to that as we go further into this unit. Another way of writing this formula is y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. You might be like, well, what's different? Well, look at what I started with in the second one versus the first one. What I'm saying is, in other words, it does not matter which point you start with, but you must be consistent. Now, what do I mean by that? Here's what I will see some people do. They will do y2 minus y1, and then on the bottom, they'll do x1 minus x2. You can't do that. That will not give you slope. What that will give you is actually, if you do it correctly, the right number with the wrong sign is what will happen. So you got to be careful. You got to, doesn't matter which one you start with, but you got to start with the y coordinate of the point that you choose and the x coordinate of the one that you choose. So let's do some practice. Find the slope between, got a few examples here. I'm going to do the first one nice and slow. Okay, I'm going to do it 2 different ways to show you that it doesn't matter. So I'll label them real quick. 3 is x1, 5 is y1, 9 is x2, 8 is y2. So if I do y2, that's 8, minus y1, that's 5, over x2, that's 9, minus x1, that's 3. I'm just going to simplify that now and figure out what my slope is. 8 minus 5 is 3. 9 minus 3 is 6. Reduce that, I get 1/2. So my slope on this first one is 1/2. But what happens if I would have started with y1? Well, y1 is 5. y2 is 8. But if I start with y1, I've got to start with x1. So that's 3 on the bottom. And then x2 is 9. 5 minus 8 is -3. 3 minus 9 is -6. Reduce that. The negatives are going to cancel, and you are also going to get positive 1/2. So it doesn't matter which one you start with. I think I proved that there. All right, let's do another one. If you think you're good, pause it. Try it yourself. I'm going to just stick with the first formula I showed you. I'm going to start with y2, so -8, minus y1, which is 2, over x2, which is 1, minus x1, which is -3. Now, look what I did there. I know that a minus and negative is a positive. I know that, but I'm not going to change anything yet. I'm going to write everything out and then start simplifying. That's a way that you can do this without that helps you not make mistakes. Okay, so don't simplify too soon. That's where mistakes happen. -8 minus 2 is -10. 1 minus -3 is 1 plus 3, so 4. Reduce, always reduce. I can take 2 out of both of these. So my slope is -5 over 2. Okay. Last one on the front. We'll start with -25. And what's going to happen is you're probably going to get comfortable with this and you're going to start going too fast. And you'll do something like this. You'll write down the wrong numbers, or you'll just, yeah. See what I did wrong there? 12 is an X value, should go on the bottom. 5 is the Y value, should go on the top. So get that switched and do it correctly here. 5 is on top. -3 minus 12 is on the bottom. -25 minus 5 is -30. -3 minus 12 is -15. 2 negatives makes a positive. 2 over 1 or just 2. Either way is fine how you write that. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the back and look at a different situation. Finding a slope from a table. Find the slope from each table. Now, in the first lesson, I showed you how you have to check and see if the table is showing a line or not. I'm telling you that there's a slope. Find the slope. I'm telling you that there's a slope. You don't have to check it here. I'm telling you it's a line if you know how to read that. I'm not always going to do that, but in this case, I am. In this video, I'm showing you that both of these tables do make lines if I would plot these points. Okay, so continuing, how many points are we given in each table? So in the first table, there are 4 points given. How many points do we need? 2. So what I'm telling you is I've given you more than enough. So I'm going to choose 2 points, any 2 points, and find the slope. Now, there are smart choices here. Be a little easier. I'll point them out real quick. These would probably be the 2 easiest. 0 and positive numbers, much easier to deal with than having negative numbers. But I want to show you that it doesn't matter. So I'm going to choose the second one and the last one. Okay. If you want, you could do it from the table like I showed you in lesson 1, or you can write out the points and do what we did on the front side. So X is -1, Y is 14, X is 3, Y is 6, and then just do the work from there. So 6 minus 14 over 3 minus -1. So 6 minus 14 is -8. 3 minus -1, or 3 plus 1 is 4. -8 divided by 4 is -2, or -2 over 1. And just a little recap, just to show you that I'm not making this up. From 14 to 6 goes down 8, so -8. From -1 to 3 goes up 4. -8 over 4, that's what we figured out there. Okay, gives you the same thing. All right, I'll choose the first one and the last one. This one you could have, again, the last 2 would have probably been the smarter ones to choose, but just showing you that it doesn't matter which ones we choose. So -9, -6, and 6, 14. All right, so 14 minus -6. Oops. And then 6 minus -9. 14 minus -6 is +20. 6 minus -9 is +15. Take 5 out of both of those, I get 4 over 3. That's my slope. And so that's finding slope from a table. If you've paid attention for 2 lessons, you know that there's really not much different that I've shown you today than I did the day before. Okay. From a graph, find the slope from each graph. Well, in graph 1, as you go from left to right, the line goes downhill, right? Looking at it, it looks like you're skiing down a hill. If you're going downhill, the slope is negative. It's a good way to check and make sure you have the right sign, especially if you have a graph. Let's go ahead and find the slope now. The nice points here are actually already labeled. I'm dropping 2. I always go down, up or down first. So down 2 is -2. And I'm going to go right 1, 2, 3. Right 3 is +3. So -2 over 3 is my slope. And that's counting. Do you have to count? No. I could have taken that first nice point and written out the coordinates 0, 3. And I could have taken the next one, 3, 1. And subtract them like we've been doing the whole lesson so far. 1 minus 3, 3 minus 0. 1 minus 3 is -2. 3 minus 0 is 3. Boom. You get the same answer. I do want to caution you against that because if you name the points wrong, if you give the wrong coordinates, it'll mess up your slope. So if you can count, I would do it. Go ahead and try and count the next one. Find the slope. So hopefully you did that. I want to point out as you go from left to right, the line goes uphill. So the slope is going to be positive here. What is it? It's 2 over 1 or 2. Whichever way you want to write it. I don't care. As long as the denominator is 1, you can make it a whole number. All right. One more thing in this video, and then we'll be done. Vertical and horizontal lines. I could show you I could tell you what the slopes are very easily, but I'm going to try and help you see why. So I'm going to write any 2 points from the red line. So I'm going to just take -3, +3. And I'll take 2, 3. I'm going to do the slope formula, 3 minus 3 over 2 minus -3. So 3 minus 3 is 0. 2 minus -3 is +5. 0 divided by anything is 0. So the red line is a horizontal line. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0, always. The green line is a vertical line. I do the same thing. I'm going to pick 2 points. -1, 2. And -1, -4, we'll say that. So -4 minus 2 over -1 minus -1. -4 minus 2 is -6. -1 minus -1 or -1 plus 1 is 0. When you have a 0 on the bottom, try it right now. Type it in your calculator. Do -6 divided by 0. What will it tell you? Depending on your calculator, it'll say something like domain error, cannot divide by 0, error, something like that. You cannot divide by 0. So if 0 is in the bottom is bad. Okay, meaning my slope is undefined. That is something that will come back many times. Please remember these 2 things. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Vertical lines have an undefined slope. Okay, that concludes our lesson on slope, and we'll start to actually graph these things in the next lesson.